And with that, we'll dive right in, and we'll kick off by exploring one of the most discussed areas of implementation of quantum technologies, its potential to revolutionize healthcare and medicine. It's an often emotional topic, which is why it's all the more important we really gain a grounded, realistic, and constructive perspective today. And I'm excited to introduce to the stage Mr. Clemens Utschig-Utschig. He's the CTO of Boehringer Ingelheim, and who he'll share, I hope, as the title of your presentation promises, a truly fact-based, hype-free view on drug development with quantum computing. And with that, we're very, very glad to have you, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me at Bitkom. I'll talk over the next 20 minutes about our work, about the work of my team, the Quantum Lab of Boehringer Ingelheim, and what we do, what we found, and where we currently are when it comes to drug design on quantum computers. If we believe anything in what Richard Feynman said, and he won a Nobel Prize for all this, then modeling one quantum system with another may be the right approach to actually get way deeper understanding than what we have today on drugs, molecular systems, atomic systems. So, a couple words on Boehringer Ingelheim. Boehringer Ingelheim, the largest family-owned drug discovery company in the world, top 20 pharmaceutical. We are still, and we are very proud about that, family-owned, because it allows us to actually think and invest in decades. We don't need to report to stock exchange, to analysts and whatnot, so we can take the time, in fact, to really go after problems. And one, in fact, that we really go after is quantum computing. And why we do this, I'm going to show you on the next few slides. We were also the first partner of Google Quantum AI to really work with them side by side and together, not on their hardware progress, but really on algorithmic progress, which is also our world. Our world is not to build a quantum box. Although we got many, many applications when we originally hired a team of people that could build cryos and control systems and many other things, that's not our job. Our job is to find better drugs to save lives. So, what is drug discovery all about and drug development? It's to find quite literally the needle in the haystack. And that haystack is gigantically large. If you want to take one picture away from how drug discovery works, then think of it that way. You have one piece in the enzyme or protein chain. You can think of it as a gigantic lock that actually causes the progression of a disease. And our job, in the simplest case, is actually to find a molecule that actually locks that gigantic lock, like a key. And the better that molecule is, the better that chemical entity is, the longer it binds, the lesser we need of it. And the lesser we need of that dose, of that molecule, chances are, the lesser side effects you have. It's pretty famous. Every substance in this world is deadly. It's a matter of its amount. For me, a super small amount of cacao is deadly. I'm highly allergic to it. For others, you can eat piles and piles of chocolate, not a problem. So our job, when we think about drugs and design drugs and molecules, is how can we get the best binding for a given piece to a given target. And there's many, many, many disciplines involved, right? There is chemistry, there is of course biology to understand the metabolism. There is computational chemistry involved, design drugs, understand the side effects, understand and predict properties. How does something actually bind? How does docking work and whatnot? 10 years on average to come from many, many, many possibilities, assuming we have a target, all the way to one drug that we register and bring to the market. So it's not just painful, it's also super exciting and decently expensive. So, granted that we look into drug discovery and not many other things, because that's our very, very core work, we looked at what use cases actually we believe can truly benefit of quantum computing, right? And there's a couple of them. The first, and maybe the kind of interesting one, is to understand the tissues better, to get actually better views of tissue that is affected by disease. If you think of progression of cancer, for example, we want to understand way, way better actually how a disease progresses on the tissue itself. Then we have two obvious ones, molecular dynamics and binding affinity. I mean, the world is not still, right? And the world is not stable. Just because you have a molecule does not mean it's one geometry. It's actually, in fact, many geometries of the same molecule. And we want to understand how that works and what is the prevalent geometry of that. And then, of course, kind of the holy grail, binding affinity. Really how actually one piece binds to another. And then there's other pieces that are not less important, but later in the chain to help us actually design better drugs, and that is side effect prediction, of course, as well as ADMET. And ADMET is pretty simple in terms of what it is. It's everything from the absorption of the drug to the metabolism to excreting it, right? Because think of it that way. When you take a drug, there's actually quite some magic involved to get it actually where it's supposed to help bind, inhibit, and whatnot. And there is obviously, you absorb, you're in a human body, right? A human body is not at 0 Kelvin, guess what? And also a human body is also not just one molecule, but many. There's water, there's ligands, there's solvents. There is a hell lot of other substances involved. And that's our world, right? And with that, to understand this better, we think actually quantum computing, in fact, can help. And then there's all the downstream pieces, right? That are around supply chain, about other things. We purposely do not look at them yet because they are optimization related. Our world is really the chemical part of the game. If we can increase the accuracy, if you can increase the speed, and one of the two you have to pick, the thing's gotta be better than either an experiment, it's gotta be cheaper, it's gotta be faster, or it's gotta be deliver more insights. That's the reason why we look at quantum. So, two things we primarily look at: MD, molecular dynamics, as well as binding affinity. I promised a real-world, fact-based perspective. So let's talk numbers. Because it's super easy to say there is an advantage and you can use NISQ today to generate quantum advantage and whatnot. I want to just present you a few numbers. A few numbers that we came up over many, many years of research together with our partners. And one is here. That's the first bit I want to present to you. P450, part of the cytochrome class, super important enzymes. These enzymes are key responsible in the human metabolism. We looked at what would it take to actually bring this beast on a quantum box and understand its ground state. Get the ground state energy. So one piece, just the ground state. What would I need in terms of resources? Look for yourself. 1,400 logical qubits. Logical error-corrected qubits. Now, we can easily discuss what the ratio of physical to logical is. 10 to 1, 100 to 1, 1,000 to 1. Pick it. It's a gigantic amount. But that's really not the problem. 7.8 billion gates. A lot, right? If you think about how we deal with noise, if you think about how we deal with coherence and many other things. But you know what? Funnily enough, I don't care about any of this. Actually, I don't. What I do care is 3 days of runtime. 3 days. If you tell a researcher in our world, you need to wait for one given molecule for a ground state 3 days, they will just tell you thank you and do their experiment. And then, if you think this is already, oh my God, well, the system size is some 500 orbitals. The active space we took for the resource estimate is 58 orbitals. So talk about approximation. I mean, of course, the 58 are extremely representative of the 500 surround or 420 surrounding them then. But still. So this is the best resource estimate that we could come up with together with Google, right? And yes, if the box is there, there is quantum advantage. Because it's actually a strongly correlated molecule, at least to the best of our knowledge. We brought DMRG all its way to the end to see, is there actually something where quantum could help, which is the other part, right? Never mind all the resources that we need. Currently, the class of molecules that we can go after, where we expect DMRG and other means to fall apart, is pretty small. We had to look quite a bit to find that beast. So that's part one. And that's one ground state, right? One ground state energy. If you think about what I explained earlier, 50,000 molecules that we start with, or potentials, or even more than that, to down select to one. And this is just one piece of the piecemeal. One molecule, no solvents, no ligands, no thermostat, just the ground state. Important thing, but just the ground state. Okay. The second part we looked into was, and is binding affinity, quite a bit, right? And if you take the quote normal approach, especially in the NISQ world, we talk quite a bit about VQE, we talk about supermolecular approaches. So what do? You take two molecules, and then you start calculating, right? And you calculate 3 times. One, you take the combined total energy of the system, and then you subtract the energy of one system, of one piecemeal, and then of the other piecemeal. Very common approach. We tried this with 2 water molecules. 2. 12 orbitals, 12 electrons. We couldn't make the thing converge. So it was obvious, oops, we need to find other ways. So we looked into the big dictionary of well-known quantum chemistry methods that are there since many, many years and well-researched, and that's SAPT, symmetry-adapted perturbation theory. And actually tried to get that into the realm of NISQ. What would it take? Would it actually deliver benefits to us? And yes, indeed, in a simulated world, it would deliver quite a lot of benefits, because actually, if I don't need to calculate the dimer system anymore, but just the 2 monomers, so the 2 molecules, and I can calculate the rest in post-processing out of it, I have dramatic reduction of noise, as well as gate depth, of course, right? Because gate depth scales with qubits in the NISQ world. So that is what we learned. On the other side, I guess everybody here in the room knows about the challenges with VQX and also the challenges around NISQ, I would just assume. So if you also take a look what the industry is currently moving to, we move into the world of fault tolerance, right? To understand fault tolerance much better, to understand what would actually fault-tolerant algorithms look like. So with all that knowledge and our partners, we went to look at fault-tolerant ideas, right? And here is what we came up with. SAPT on a fault-tolerant box. So for a pretty small system, combined system, 6,300 logical qubits. That's a bit. 100 quintillion gates. That's an even bigger bit. But you remember, gates and qubits, kind of nice. The runtime, way too many years to think we are there. If I tell a researcher, hey, you need to have so much luck that you have the right piece on the first attempt, and then you have to wait many years, and if you're really, really, really right, then you found it, it's not going to work. It's not going to be a hell lot of excitement. But this is where we are. This is, together with our partners, this is stretching algorithms to the bare end of what we know. This is actually the work we do with PsiQuantum, with QCiver, with Google, with many others, to really understand where are we currently and what do we need actually to get to meaningful quantum algorithms. And again, right, advantage can be seen in many, many different ways. Advantage can be a speed up, a possibility, or way deeper insight into a system. Because the better we understand the system, and if you think about symmetry-adapted perturbation theory, we can understand energy contributions, which tell us quite a bit about the system, the landscape of the system, and its energies around it, and not just one combined total, right? So don't think advantage always just gotta be speed, speed, speed. Advantage can be also way better insights. So kind of 2 rather important pieces. Now, how do we go after any of this business? And that's sort of my call to you when you think about contributing to algorithm and quantum research. Because we spent quite a bit on thinking around whom do we need to help us to get meaningfully forward, without hype, without anything. And really in our world, it's pretty easy, right? It's on the one hand, finding people with quantum chemistry experience, plenty of quantum chemistry experience, in the classical world as in the computational world. So we didn't want to set up an ivory tower that is completely disjoint from any of our real world, right? Because we have to get to real use cases. We are not doing this for our own fun or just for a quote-unquote a Nobel Prize on research. We want to benefit the development of drugs. That's our purpose, not to build a box, right? So we have people that are extremely grounded in quantum chemistry. We have people that are extremely grounded in the experimental world of photons and whatnot. So maybe also to look towards what can an analog simulator potentially do outside of boson sampling. What is other possibilities, right? And of course we work, and that is the big important thing, very integrated with the business team having these problems. Because maybe there's also things that we can in fact learn from our algorithm research to be then folded into machine learning algorithms, machine learning ideas and whatnot. So this is kind of not a one-way street, hopefully, but really a street into 2 ways. And secondly, obviously, we work with partners. And here is also a recommendation, really pick the partners that you can work with on the same level. Don't try to outsource research. Really invest, if you invest yourself, also invest into your partner landscape to take the time to pick the guys that are really researching on the cutting edge. That's for us, University of Toronto with Nathan Wiebe, with Alain. That's for us, University of Luxembourg. QCiver with Rob Parrish, that is one of the inventors of tensor hypercontraction, right? Because these guys are extremely well-grounded in the quantum chemistry world. Because the quantum chemistry we are using today and all the means, they are optimized since 20, 30 years. I mean, DFT is a beast. Granted, it's approximate, and granted, you need to find the right functional, but it's a beast. I mean, it's super lightning fast. Coupled clusters, super lightning fast. Force fields. Many people that do chemistry today use force fields left, right, up, and down. Highly approximative, but actually doing what it's supposed to do. So we are trying actually to make these things go better, faster, with more insight. With the dream to have full configuration interaction on molecular level. I mean, that's what these quantum boxes are supposed to be good at. Knowingly that actually it's going to take us quite some time. And that is also what I want to leave you with. If you think there's advantage tomorrow, or you have solved toxicity predictions, then please come to stage and let us know. I would really like to understand this. Because if it was solved, I think there would be plenty of new drugs that have hit the market the last couple of years. Okay, which brings me to the last slide. So, we all know, and this is what I also alluded to, classical algorithms have way too many approximations to be truly predictive. And we talked about that, right? Be it DFT, be it force fields, be it many other things, and everything in between. Part 2. The algorithms we think about today, we cost today, we design today, are actually in the chemistry world only advantages for a very small set of systems. The famous strongly correlated ones. Not for everything. Not for the gazillion of weakly correlated ones that we have and that we actually deal with in the context of drugs, in the context of many other chemical processes. So, to really generate meaningful quantum advantage for us, there's a couple things we need to do. We need to way improve the current algorithms that we have. Because if I run QPE, but not once, but at trizillion times, no matter how fast I make QPE, it's going to be still at trizillion times. With all its advantages and disadvantages, number one. Number two, we need to develop quantum algorithms for novel applications. And let me tell you, when we, out of our experience, when we took the problem of SAPT, or of perturbation theory, towards a quantum computer, it's not like, and you're done. It took us 1.5 years together with partners, plenty FTE, to really sit down and design this thing from scratch, to the point to really rethink the theory that is behind and how do we get the backbone of the implementation, its ideas, methods, and concepts onto the quantum box. And obviously, we need hardware to finally really test heuristics and understand how that beast works. Once every while, when I'm asked, I tell people, you know, even if magic happens, there's a magic moment today. 5,000 logical qubits just fall from heaven. Like, bloop. Hey, we are at Cosmos, right? From the moon. Bloop, they're there. It's gonna be literally like in a Stone Age where people were sitting in a cave, freezing, and suddenly there was a lightning spark and they had fire. And I'm like, ooh. And it took many likely burnt hands and other pieces to understand what the heck to do with fire. And that's the same thing. We will need both. And we'll need both to work jointly together. If you think like, hey, if the quantum box falls from heaven, I just go and run my stuff and I'm done. No. It's a lot of work. And my call to you guys is actually to join the army of the willing. To join the army of the willing towards quantum algorithm research. Because with the best box being available tomorrow from heaven, again, it's going to be the Stone Age cave moment of a lightning. So, what does all this mean? It's pretty simple. We will still need years of basic research. And basic research all the way to applied research. From understanding the Hamiltonian better, understanding the complexity of it better, understanding the mappings much better, finding smarter ways to map, smarter ways to transform, finding likely better QPs, better QSPs, better QSBTs, and please, every little bit of hype energy that is invested is actually one that should go into algorithm research. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Utschig-Utschig, for that inspiring presentation. I think we're a little bit out of time for questions, but
53 seconds.
53 seconds. All right. Is there a question that we can answer within 53 seconds? Yes.
So we actually use machine learning up and down. With quantum machine learning, it's an interesting thing because there's so many things that are actually unsolved. Measuring, loading, what to actually do with whatever I measure out of this. So yes, there is some research, but nothing that is in a fact presentable way.
That was, sorry.
10 seconds. So there is active research going on, but I rather present what we have either research on or research together with our partners than speculating around.
And that's a perfect conversation. You can maybe continue over a cup of coffee later. Thank you so much for your time and answering that question from the audience.